It's time for the Movin the Chains podcast. Your home for high school football coverage in the Palmetto State. Every team, every game, every week. And now your hosts, Kevin Thomas and Jerel Hendricks.
Welcome in to Movin the Chains, brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union, here for our Week 2 recap show from Folly Row. I'm Kevin Thomas alongside Jerel Hendricks. Jerel, we've had our first couple weeks been pretty crazy here across the state. I felt like Week 2 was a little bit more, normal and almost, not quite as crazy as we had seen early in the year.
Yeah, it's a lot more tame. The teams we expected to handle business usually did so. So, it was one of those things where, it was a solid week of football. We had a few upsets, a few things that, where the ball bounced different ways, than what we anticipated. But for the most part, it calmed down for the last 2 weeks for sure.
No doubt about it. Well, if this is you guys' first time tuning in, we appreciate you. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains, MOVINCHAINS. Our website, movinchains.com. Our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. We do a weekly recap show, comes out on Sundays, recapping all the ball games there. We do a live preview show on Tuesday nights about 7 o'clock or so on Facebook and YouTube. Check us out on there. Comment during the show. It's a lot of fun to get some interaction from you guys on that. We do our Twitter or X Spaces on Friday night about 10:30, 11. We go through a quick scoreboard show, have coaches and announcers and players and fans hop in, talk about the games they were at across the state. We also have Players of the Week, Teams of the Week, Pick 'em, etc. available on all of our platforms, like I said. But let's get a quick shout out to our friends of the program before we get into the game that we were at down in the Aiken County area.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture-wicking, quick-drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos.
Jerel and I hit the road and traveled down to the CSRA down to Petticoat Junction to check out 4A Midland Valley on the road at 2A Silver Bluff. Jerel, a heavy hitters ball game for sure. A lot of names from guys like Trayvon Dunbar to Jordan Boyd and more. Really, cool atmosphere down there. Great crowd. And the ball game maybe didn't quite live up to the hype, but still a pretty solid showing. So started off Midland Valley with the ball. They drive down, go for it on fourth down, incomplete pass. Silver Bluff takes over the 31. They trade possessions again. Midland Valley comes back down, scores on 4th and 6, a 28-yard touchdown pass from Preston Butler to Evan Phillips, the big tight end. They go up 7-0, 4:11 left in the first quarter. Silver Bluff, they try to get something going on offense. They go 3 and out again, I believe it was there. And then the first play of the next possession, a 69-yard touchdown run by Trayvon Dunbar down the left sideline. They go up 14-0, 1:22 left in the first quarter. And then it really kind of got even worse for the Bulldogs in the ensuing kickoff. Kind of a pooch kick there. The Silver Bluff guy touches it and gets absolutely hammered by Jaden Simpkins. Fumbles. The Mustangs recover the ball at the plus 46. And they take a 14-0 lead into the end of the first quarter. They don't score on that possession. Silver Bluff holds on fourth down, takes over at their 17, about 9:45 left. Can't do anything once again. Midland Valley drives down, goes up 21-zip on a 7-yard touchdown pass from Preston Butler to Antron Butler. 3:31 left in the second quarter. Really a danger zone there for Silver Bluff, but they finally get some offense going, Jerel, here. They get a couple nice runs going up the middle, and they finally score on 4th and 3, a 14-yard touchdown by Jaden Fuller. They go on the scoreboard 21-7, 33 seconds left in the second quarter, and that score holds until halftime. But, it was 21-7, Jerel. Midland Valley, big punch, start the game. You felt like Silver Bluff kind of handled it, kind of weathered the storm. That last touchdown was really important because they hadn't moved the ball at all until then. And we thought they had a chance to get back in the game. But, I mean, hats off to Midland Valley. You know, come out of halftime, we'll get to it in a second. But they didn't let Silver Bluff really get any momentum after that point.
Yeah, I feel like we've said the same story the last 3 weeks. This game, once again, was won in the trenches. You know, that Midland Valley, you know, defensive line and their offensive line just completely controlled the football game. You know, we talked to Coach Chapman before the game. He was really high on his running backs, especially, you know, Trayvon Dunbar. We know about him. And, you know, like they were just able to control the game. Just such a good game from Evan Phillips, the tight end. I mean, he was doing everything, and it wasn't anything that was extremely difficult, you know, just drag routes. You know, he was, you know, getting open in the middle of the field, but he is a huge kid. I mean, he's 6'4", all of 220, 230, just uses his body well, good hands catcher, you know, and they just honestly, we've been talking about Silver Bluff these first few weeks in the season about how they've been able to punch teams in the mouth, kind of control and dominate, especially with those studs they have on the defensive line. But Midland Valley kind of just took that game plan to them, and they established that physicality early. And I don't, you know, this is a 4A 2A matchup. It wasn't a situation where it was like depth or anything like that. Midland Valley was just the more physical football team, and they set the tone, you know, from that kickoff. You mentioned that play by Jaden Simpkins. I mean, I think, you know, our buddy Kurt, you know, who does the video stuff, he got that perfect. I mean, he lit that kid up. It was a clean hit. And that was, you know, I was just so surprised in that first half how physical Midland Valley was. You know, even Silver Bluff, their defense kept them in. I think they had 2 4th-down stops, you know, like in the red zone, you know, but that Mustangs team in that first half, they just established their dominance, imposed their will, and Silver Bluff was just never able to recover. We'll talk about the second half, but that first half just established what was going to happen in that game.
You're exactly right. You know, we talked to Coach Bryant on the field before the game. He said, you know, Midland Valley, they passed the eye test, and boy, did they. I mean, they had some big kids, and like they were a problem up front on both lines all night long. But in the second half, honestly, not a whole lot happened. The teams traded turnovers a couple times. I know Midland Valley's first possession, Deswan McCorkle came up with a pick for Silver Bluff to get them the ball back. They end up fumbling the ball back to Midland Valley a little bit later on. They recover at their 33. And then early in the fourth quarter, Midland Valley gets down to the goal line trying to kind of put a stamp on the ball game, really end it, and they fumble at the goal line. Darian Jackson recovers for Silver Bluff at the 4-yard line, but they're still trailing by 14 and just could not do anything. You know, and the score held the whole second half, 21-7. Midland Valley is the winner. And it was surprising to me how, you know, Silver Bluff has put up some big numbers these first 2 weeks, you know, against the South Aiken team and then against the Socracy team. They put up huge numbers offensively, just could not get going. The run game was stifled from the beginning. The pass game never got out of the chutes there. It seemed like, you know, the quarterback looked a little bit hesitant sometimes, a little bit happy feet, couldn't really get settled in. I was surprised with how well the Midland Valley our defense played, I would say, especially on Friday night.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. You know, it wasn't, you know, in terms of scoring, there wasn't much that happened in that second half. But I want to say Trayvon Dunbar had 2 long runs that were called back for touchdown. And I looked at you. I think this was about, you know, midway into the third quarter. He had a run, and I think it's going around on social media now. He had a run where he met, you know, Joe Nathan Phillips from Silver Bluff. You know, he plays running back and linebacker for Silver Bluff. He met him about 5 yards, you know, in the hole, and just completely ran that kid over. And this is a stout kid. And he ran him over. He juked to the sideline. He heads off about, you know, 50, 60 yards. And I looked at you in the stands. I was like, this football game's over. Like that set the tone. I mean, it was over from that point. I think Silver Bluff got lucky that the scoreline held, you know, to only 14 points. Like I said, there was 2 that were called back. They had that issue at the goal line where they fumbled. You know, the Mustangs were going in there. But they just, you know, I was really impressed with how good Midland Valley was. You know, there were some penalties and things like that. Referees, you know, having some issues still early in the season. But I was really impressed, you know, how Coach Chapman had his team prepared to play. They were physical, and they stuck to their game plan. And I guess, you know, we talked to Trayvon Dunbar after the game. They said they saw a lot of stuff on film, and they knew that they were going to be able to execute, and they did. And I was really impressed with how they executed in the game. On the other side, Silver Bluff, they still have a bunch of studs. This is not the end of their season. It's non-region. And And I think this was probably a bad game. The 3 games we've been to, the opposing quarterback on the losing side has not had a good game. And this was a game where Mackenzie Atterbury just did not play his best football. And I think this is going to be a learning moment for him, that team, and they're going to be fine, going forward this season.
And that's one thing, obviously Midland Valley, a great defensive ball game, holding Silver up to 7 points. I was very impressed with that. But I do feel like there were some opportunities through the air where you could attack those guys. And Silver Bluff couldn't really take advantage of that. I don't know if it's, game plan stuff or just the execution or what, but we'll see as Midland Valley goes down the road how good that pass defense is. But I know the run defense is very good. And I just can't say enough about the offensive line for Midland Valley. We know about Silver Bluff. We talk about the guys like Jaden Eason and Jaden Fuller and then Jordan Boyd, all big-time players. Boyd going to Georgia Tech. Fuller's a D1 guy as well. Eason's getting some offers. And Midland Valley just imposed their will. I do want to say, and Jerel, I told you this like in the pregame, Jordan Boyd is a specimen. That kid is a freak, man. He is well put together. Yeah. He's a grown man. He's a special player. I think Georgia Tech is getting a very good player there. But and just outside of the football part of it, great atmosphere down there at Silver Bluff. It was a packed house on both sides, really. Great stadium. You could tell the tradition. You could feel kind of the tradition, and just the people. They were proud of their program. We had guys sitting around us, who with their old Letterman jackets on or talking about the teams back in this year, how good they were. And it was really cool to hear that. And it was another thing that we talked about during the game, the amount of just well-mannered kids that were there.
Yeah.
I think it was the ROTC or someone maybe was doing the parking. And we pull up and they say, yes, sir, no, sir, thanks for coming. We have welcome to the Bluff. I think everybody said welcome to the Bluff, which is really cool, I felt like. But
yeah,
they did a great job of kind of the way they handle parking and just the kids they had out there were super well-mannered, super nice. Really enjoyed that part of it. The concessions, we got a review coming out next Friday. Check that out. Had a lot of great options there, anywhere from the Bulldog Burger to a pickle to chicken tenders to hot dog. A lot of great options there at the concession stand. But glad we got down there. We hadn't been to a game down at Silver Bluff. Glad we got down to Petticoat Junction. And also shout out to J-Dubs, too. Our pregame meal at J-Dubs is very good. Coach Bryant recommended that spot to us. It was really good. Got some pizza and wings over there down in New Ellington. A really good atmosphere, really fun time. And once again, shout out to Coach Bryant at Silver Bluff and Coach Chapman at Midland Valley, both for giving us some time and talking to us before and after the game. And hopefully we get back down there again sometime. Right, Jerel?
Yeah, man, that was the best thing about it is like you were saying, like, just the hospitality, the people that we were able to encounter in the stands, everything was first class, like you said, the tradition, they've won multiple state championships. That community is behind their team. We haven't been to many games in that region too. I know you've been to a few North Augusta games and things like that previously, but that was my first time, really covering a game in that area. And man, it was spectacular. Like you said, J-Dubs was fantastic. It was awesome being there. I can't get over the kids, man. I heard more yes, sirs, no, sirs, and excuse me's than I've probably heard the last 3 years. So it was really cool to be in that environment. Again, thanks to that administration, Coach Bryant, he's come on our show before, so we really appreciate him. We're going to get Coach Chapman on here, man.
Yeah.
He's got something going, because we start looking forward. That was a big win for them. I know they're going to play a team out of Georgia this coming week. But you start looking at that region, man, we start breaking that down. They've got a legitimate shot to be a 1 seed, win that region, and go into the playoffs hot. That's a really good, like you said, man, that's a really good team, on both sides of the offensive, defensive front, man. They were really – I was really impressed. I mean, I'm stuttering over my words, just how impressed I was with how well coached they were, how they executed, and how they performed. Because I'm not going to lie, man, I thought Silver Bluff was going to win this football game. I really did going in. And they made a believer out of me, Midland Valley did.
And Coach Chapman told us in the postgame, this is something they've been building for 2 or 3 years now. And, we caught up with him and Trayvon Dunbar and Evan Phillips after the ball game. And we'll put in that Coach Chapman interview here in a second. And the other two will be along, be on our Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, wherever you got to check them out. But, yeah, Coach Chapman, he told us that he's not surprised with the way this game went. He knew they had a good defense, knew they had a good offense. He expected to win this ball game, and they certainly dominated. But let's put in an interview now from Coach Earl Chapman at Midland Valley, and then we will wrap up and move on to the next part of the show.
Jerel Hendricks here on Moving the Chains. We got Coach Earl Chapman here. Midland Valley wins 21-7 here at Silver Bluff. Coach, talk about your defense and offensive line and how they dominate tonight.
Well, in all honesty, I'm not surprised. Our offensive line has done it 3 weeks in a row now. We've been successful running the football. I think the biggest surprise for tonight for people who are watching is how good we are on defense as well. I think that's something that people are going to realize. I think we have a really good football team all the way around, offense, defense, and special teams. So I'm glad we got to showcase how talented we are on that side of the ball as well.
You mentioned you had 3-headed monster in the backfield, before the game. Of course, Trayvon got his. But the big performance from your tight end tonight, talk about that kid just going off tonight.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's a big-time player, and again, we haven't thrown it a ton, so people don't know that we can do it. But I think he had a great game. We thought we would have some looks where he would be open, and we were able to take advantage of him. He did a great job catching the ball and running after the catch.
I know you want to celebrate with your team, but I got one more for you.
Sir.
Had a big-time environment here. I mean, this stadium was packed. Speak about how your team showing poise, coming here in a hostile environment, and completely dominating this football game, to be frank.
Again, man, it's something we've prepared for 3 years. So they're ready for the moment. They embrace the moment. They want to be in the big moments. And I think that's the reason we've shown the fortitude we have the last 2 weeks to be able to finish in big games and in big moments.
Coach Chapman, his Midland Valley Mustangs win here tonight, 21-7 over Silver Bluff. Congratulations, Coach. Good luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.
That was Coach Earl Chapman of the Midland Valley Mustangs following their 21-7 victory over Silver Bluff in Week 2.
All right, Kevin, let's jump into the rest of our games of the week, presented by Kona. We really appreciate our friends over there for being a part of this program. But the first one I want to highlight, man, Chester and Fairfield Central. The Cyclones, man, they are making statements week after week early in this season. They win this game 24-0 over Fairfield Central. This was a tight game going into the second half. I want to say it was 0-0 at halftime. The Cyclones just put it on them in that second half. Fairfield Central, they're coming off a big win last week over Andrew Jackson. But Chester seems to be for real, man.
Very impressed with that Cyclones defense. That's a Fairfield Central offense with McMillan and Tadarian Greer and those guys, Robertson, that can really put up some points to shut them out. I know it's at home. Chester's a tough place to play, but still a shutout against those guys is very impressive. They've got a good test this week. I believe they play South Point on the road, the Cyclones do, but that's a huge win over Fairfield Central.
Speaking of impressive, man, the Hartsville Red Foxes is a team we've been high on all season, man. They are fantastic. They knock off Camden 55-21. This is a big-time rivalry game in the state of South Carolina. This game was played down there in Kellytown. And, man, I saw some highlights this weekend, man. Carmelo McDaniel he's the truth, man. He is so freaking good. But that entire squad is good. This is a Camden team that's just been riding high, first 2 weeks in the season. And, we just continue to see the Red Foxes just put up points week in and week out.
Hartsville rolled up nearly 600 yards of total offense, Jerel, 400 plus on the ground in that ball game. And that's something you think about Camden, you think physicality, big, tough, strong defense. Hartsville, they put it on those boys. Now, I saw Coach Rimps after the ball game that, they did not match Hartsville's, physicality that on Friday night, and that's quite obvious. Carmelo McDaniel, 5 touchdowns, a huge ball game. McKendry Douglas ran for 100 plus as well at the quarterback spot. Hartsville, that final score you said there, it wasn't really that close. I think it was like 47-6 or something like that at one point. Like it was over early there. The Red Foxes, we keep saying it, they are for real. Coach Calabrese is doing a great job there. They've got experience in the backfield, experience at the quarterback spot, experience on defense. That line is coming together. There are not many teams in 4A, maybe in the whole state, that I would put ahead of Hartsville right now.
Most definitely, man. They got the next 2 weeks, I was going to say next week, but the next 2 weeks, man, they got some huge challenges. They go up to Dillon between the White Walls next week. The week after, they're back home. They got to play Irmo. We'll talk about, Irmo a little bit later in the show. But right now, man, they just look an absolute buzzsaw. Like you said, that game wasn't close. I think it was 34-6 at the half. So that just shows how well Hartsville's performing early in this season. But another team that's performing well, their second game of the year, we have the Somerville Green Wave taking on the Berkeley Stags. Big-time game in the state of South Carolina, especially in the low country. Two of the premier programs in the state. Berkeley, of course, is starting to rebuild. Somerville, number one in the polls in 5A right now. Berkeley feeling good about themselves, getting 2 early wins under new head coach Eric Lodge. Somerville puts that, down early. They win this game 62-27. Kev, the Green Wave are legit. If we've talked about it repeatedly, Berkeley's it's going to take them a year or two to really get their legs under them. But this was this was the perfect storm to let them know where they are in that process going up against Somerville.
Yannick Smith, the ECU commit, reminded everyone why he's one of the best players in the state. If you guys haven't seen him play, check out his highlight. He's a dynamic athlete. Had 4 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 2 through the air for the Green Wave. He's a stud. Somerville, they had looked a little bit shaky, I felt like, in week 1, a close win over Carolina Forest. I didn't know if Berkeley could win this ball game. I thought they had a decent chance to keep it close. But Somerville said, no, sir, none of that. Big win there for Coach Rafferty and the boys. I still think Berkeley is going to be a good team this year. I think they've got a good chance in their region, really. But Somerville, like you said, reminded everyone that they are the real deal, and they are a big-time contender in 5A.
Skeeza, man. And this scoreline was a little bit surprising. Lawrence Manning been rolling early in the season. They face Wilson Hall. Wilson Hall comes off with a dub. They win this game 31-28 in a tight ball game. That's a huge win for Wilson Hall, isn't it, Kev?
The Barons' last-second field goal to win the ball game, man. You don't see a lot of that at the lower classifications or in the Skeeza ranks, but just a huge kick there to win that one. And I tell you what, I've seen some highlights of that ball game. Great crowd there. That's a big rivalry matchup between the Swamp Cats and the Barons. Love to see a tight, competitive game there. And hats off to Wilson Hall on the last-second field goal to win the ball game, and just having the faith in your kid. I think it was like a 42-yarder, so it wasn't like a chip shot. It was a long kick. So hats off to those guys. Big kick, big win for Wilson Hall.
And our games are presented by Kona. We had Midland Valley 21 over Silver Bluff 7. We had Chester knocking off Fairfield Central 24-0. Hartsville rolls Camden 55-21. Somerville, they have a big game over Berkeley. They win that one 62-27. And then in our Skeeza game of the week, we had Wilson Hall knocking off Lawrence Manning 31-28. Kev, let's move to the rest of our Pick'em games. Obviously, Pick'em presented by Hannah Engineering every week. My favorite part of what we do, honestly. I love the Pick'em contest because it keeps my eyes glued not only to the game that we're covering each Friday, but all the games across the state. The first one we had, man, and this is a big one, Boiling Springs. They play Chapman. They win this game 29-7. Chapman riding high after beating Burns a week ago. Boiling Springs is a team. We saw them week 0. They played a really tight game with Hannah. They come back next week. They blow the doors off Malden. They come and beat Chapman. I know it's a 5 versus 3, but that is a big-time win for that program.
And I feel like they controlled from the start. It was never really in doubt. They didn't let Chapman get any momentum. They never let Chapman really feel like they were controlling the game at all. Coach Reel's doing a great job there. The Husky kid is playing great at quarterback. That defense, 2 back-to-back really great performances for them. I think Boiling Springs, they might be a contender. I mean, the last couple of years it's been, obviously we know who's going to get those playoff spots in that region, and just Boiling Springs just kind of hanging out that 5th spot. I think they're trying to get into that middle or top half of that region conversation this year in Region 2 5A.
I think they can definitely do it. But speaking of that region, man, we go over to Cherokee County. This is a game that John was at this week. Probably the biggest game in the upstate. That was Gaffney and South Point. Gaffney is able to hold on, win this game 27-21. I know he kind of told us about what happened here. It was a little bit sloppy. He told us about that in the Friday night spaces. But this is a good win for Gaffney. Obviously, they're enacting a little revenge from last year. I love these marquee matchups, though, early in the season. I know you do as well. But that's a big win for the Indians. Again, South Point, great showing for them. Going into the reservation is always difficult. But, again, that game is 27-21.
A big game from Amazing Littlejohn, couple scores there for the Indians. And this game maybe wasn't – I guess it was as close, but, South Point's last touchdown came on a hook and ladder. Love to see those go right. Always a fun play to watch. But I feel like the Indians, needed to bounce back. They lost to Crest week 0, of course, came back and beat Union County. I feel like we didn't learn a lot from that ball game because Union, is just not very good. This is a legit win here. This is a win that they needed. A win that that we needed to know what they were made of. Big win for those guys. They're going to be a contender, of course, in 5A.
A team that we mentioned earlier in the show tonight, that's the Irmo Yellow Jackets. They blow the doors off River Bluff. They win this game 42-0. Not much of a pick 'em, shows what we know in this game, thinking it was going to be tight. But Irmo, man, they seem legit early in this season. AJ Brand is an absolute stud, that quarterback, signal caller for them. I'm looking forward to 2 weeks from now when they face up against Hartsville to see how good they really are. But that is an impressive performance victory for Irmo.
On both sides of the ball, you mentioned, the blowout there, obviously Brand having a big game, but then defensively, holding Parker Murray and, Stephen Collier and those guys to 0. That's a huge game on that side of the ball as well. I was thinking about this weekend, it's really weird, and you wonder what's going on over there. Are we seeing maybe a change into the guard in the Irmo area? For the longest time, Dutch Fork had all the athletes. They were, state championship after state championship after state championship. This year, all of a sudden, looks like Irmo is the real deal. Dutch Fork struggling a little bit. Obviously, they still have a lot of talent, of course, but maybe they're not quite as good. Maybe they're one or two of those kids that used to go to Dutch Fork have decided to go to Irmo. I don't know. But the Yellow Jackets are the real deal. Coach Brand's doing a great job with that squad. They have put 4A on notice with their performances so far this year, I feel like.
Another big game in the lower part of the state, this is a 2A, 1A matchup. That was Bamberg versus Barnwell. Both teams coming off losses. Bamberg's able to win this game 17-7. Low scoring. This was a physical ball game. This is a well-coached ball game and, executed well from both sides. But Bamberg picks up a big win in this football game. I don't know what to make of both of these teams this early in the season. That is a quality win for Bamberg. Barnwell, obviously, they lost a lot of talent from last year's team. Looks like they're sliding back a little bit. But again, that's a good win for Bamberg.
This is always a fun rivalry matchup. Two towns that are fairly close, don't really like each other that much there. A big win for Bamberg for sure. Coach Crosby getting those guys righted, get that ship right after a tough loss the week before. Chanston Crosby at quarterback's doing his thing there for those guys. We talk about Anthony Williams, another Super 75 guy out wide for them. They had a nice bounce back that they needed to have. And on the Barnwell side, you worry a little bit because you don't want to lose 2 games in a row, but losing to Bamberg on the road is not a terrible loss. It's really not. You got time to right that. We talk about Cam Austin every week. He's a heck of a player. He's a stud there. Got to find somebody in the running game to help him out a little bit. I saw some of the highlights. Couldn't get a lot going on the ground there for the Warhorses. They got to figure that part of it out, but I'm sure Coach Smith will do it. But I think both these teams have some chance to make some noise in the playoffs.
Big time game here, Kevin, or at least we thought it was going to be. And that was Gray Collegiate facing Hammond. Got a high school league matchup against a SCSA, team, the team that runs SCSA ball, especially in that 4A division. But Gray Collegiate just blows the doors off these guys. They win this game 52-14. Coach Holmes has got this team humming early in the season. Last week it was all offense, limited defense. This week he gets it done from all phases of the ball. Gray Collegiate, man, they are looking like a real contender. This is another game that I had pegged incorrectly, man. I thought Hammond would be much more competitive, based on their success the previous seasons. But Gray Collegiate, that's a big time statement for them.
I believe this game was 14-11 in favor of Hammond in the second quarter or late first. Then it was all Gray Collegiate after that. I was talking to some buddies last week who were kind of plugged in on the SCSA side and said, they hadn't heard a lot about Hammond this year, and I kind of felt the same way. We knew some of the names last year when they went up to Gaffney and who they had, but some of those senior pieces have graduated, and I guess these guys are a little bit younger now for the Skyhawks and hadn't really gelled yet like they needed to. Like I said, they're going to be fine in 4A, I feel like, of course, and skis on that side, but Gray Collegiate, like you mentioned, Jerel, they continue to answer the bell each and every week. A huge game from Jamarius Lockett. I don't know if you guys have seen his highlight tape, but I feel like every week he's just out jumping somebody, getting a jump ball. He is just making play after play. Couple scores again. Tyler Waller getting it done, throwing the ball. We know about B.J. Montgomery and Caleb Ford and that crew there. They're a juggernaut. They are right there at the top of 2A, Jerel. They may be the favorite. If not, they're 2 or 3 at the lowest, I would say.
Playing for the belt, we had Clinton and Newberry. This one got out of hand. Clinton wins this game 42-7 over Newberry. Newberry, they have much improved over what we've seen the past couple seasons, but they were just not enough for the Red Devils. But Kevin, we got to say it, the Red Devils are facing some injury concerns. They just keep getting bit by the bug early in this season. Hopefully they get that figured out. But, I mean, they continue to play a high level of football with that next man up mentality.
No doubt about it. Got to give a shout out to Coach Campbell and the defense there. We had one of our players of the week in week 0 was Jamel House, had a huge game for Newberry. The Red Devils held him to 1 catch for 7 yards. I think it was like a little screen pass too. So great job by that Red Devils defense. But you mentioned Clinton. They had Jaden Robinson go down last week. Copeland went down this week. I mean, they are next man up in the backfield, and they're doing a pretty good job. You got to wonder at some point, does it catch up to them? I don't know. I know they're throwing the ball a little bit more now with the Richardson kid. He had 3 touchdowns the other night. Big game for him. And they may have to rely more on his arm as the season goes along, which is kind of a new thing for Clinton over the past couple of years. But those guys will be fine. They got a great coaching staff there. Coach Alexander and Coach Campbell, and then obviously Coach Fountain is the head man, does a great job. They just they've instilled in that program that, like you said, next man up, man. Who's it going to be? But you got to hope at some point the injuries cut out and they can kind of sustain something and get rolling.
Again, our Week 2 Pick'em contest games presented by Hannah Engineering are Bowling Springs 29, Chapman 7. We've got Gaffney over South Point 27-21. Irmo blanks River Bluff 42-0. Bamberg Earhart knocks off Barnwell 17-7. Gray Collegiate wins big over Hammond 52-14. And Clinton knocks off Newberry in a rivalry game 42-7. Kevin, those are some great games. Looking forward to the Pick'em contest next week. Again, if you're not a part of it, please do it. Maybe later in the season we'll be able to do some weekly contests and stuff like that if you're not in for the yearly award. But the Pick'em contest is a lot of fun. Keeps you engaged throughout while you're at your game or even if you're at the house. It's a lot of fun, so join that. We appreciate those friends at Hannah Engineering. But, Kevin, before we start rolling into the next scores, from this past Friday, let's take a quick break.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
Carolina Orthopedic and Neurosurgical Associates, KONA, offers the most advanced training and experience in orthopedic surgery, neurosurgery, sports medicine, and pain management in the upstate. 3 convenient locations in Spartanburg, Duncan, and Greenville. Go to kona.care to learn more.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture-wicking, quick-drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polos. All right, Kev, let's take a look at some scores from across the Palmetto State this week. We had Timberland and Cross. That game was played on Saturday. Cross picks up a big win. They win 22-18. Manning over East Clarendon 26-6. Lake City knocks off Kingstree 13-0. Colleton County falls to White Knoll 42-15. We had Edisto beating Columbia 27-14. May River over Waccamaw 45-6. We had Andrew Jackson falling to Holy Trinity 32-16. Richard Wynn knocks off Francis Hugh Wardlaw 57-34. Lawrence faces Newberry. That game was 58-0. That's a Skeeza score. Jefferson Davis beats Holly Hill 28-22. Patrick Henry over Lee 47-21. Clarendon knocks off Dillon Christian 12-9. Orangeburg Prep over Northside Christian 15-3. PD Academy knocks off Carolina 28-7. And we have Williamsburg beating Florence Christian 20-18. The next game was Bethlehem Christian over Heathwood Hall 42-6. Porter Goud knocks off Camden Military 49-0. Ben Lippen over Pinewood Prep 28-21.
Yeah, I want to stop in there. Got an update from our buddy Bennett Weigel. Great game there between Ben Lippen and Pinewood Prep. Last play of the first half, Blake Boast, a blocked field goal, returns at 80 yards to put Ben Lippen up 14-7 at the half. Early in the fourth quarter, Pinewood had the ball inside the Ben Lippen 5. They were up 21-14. Kellen George strips the quarterback, and Josh Cobbs returns at 75 yards, set up a score, and tie it. Then late in the game, after a Ben Lippen stop, Blake Boast scores from 10 yards out for the go-ahead touchdown, put them up 28-21. Pinewood Prep gets the ball back, drives down inside the 10, but the Falcons get a stop on fourth down and they send Coach Devontae Holloman to 0-3. Ben Lippen wins that one 28-21, like you said, Jerel. A great ball game there in the Skeezer ranks.
Jumping back in it, we have Pillion over Eau Claire, 35-28. Batesburg-Leeville knocks off Richburg-Manetta, 56-12. C.A. Johnson over North Central, 24-20. Saluda beats 96, 25-0. Ended the Wildcats, 2-game winning streak to start the season. Whitmire over Mid-Carolina, 8-7. That's a big-time win for that Whitmire program.
Yeah, happy for Coach Campbell there. Nice win for him over Mid-Carolina. The Wildcats have had some good wins already this season.
Gilbert defeats South Aiken 49-35. I think we got a note for Coach Leapart there.
Yeah, Coach Leapart becomes the winningest coach in Gilbert history, the wins leader there for them. Great win for those guys, a team that we haven't talked a lot about because they lost some key pieces, but they seem to be pretty good on the ground again, as always, and Drake Braddock getting it done there at the quarterback spot. Drill, we got to talk about your thoroughbreds for a second, man. 0-3. We talked to Coach Hamilton in the offseason in the preview show, and he had some good things to say about the team, and they're getting it done offensively. They can't figure out the defense, man. I don't know what to do there because, we'll talk about it later on, but Malik Scurry, big game. Terrence Smith, big game. They just can't come up with the key stops, and they got to have it. And this team, I feel like, is too talented to be 0-3.
Yeah, it was the same thing last year. It's just the same story. We have all-state performers in that backfield, but then that back end is just a different story. South Aiken just can't stop anybody. But again, I think Gilbert is a team that we really haven't talked much about this season that we need to, start examining. I think they're a very good football team, but South Aiken, man, we know their non-region schedule is tough. Honestly, their non-region schedule is probably going to be more difficult than their region schedule. But they've got to figure some stuff out. I mean, it's just constantly, it feels like they're giving up, 40, 50 points a game, and you're just not going to win football games doing that. Hopefully they figure it out because, I want to see Terrence Smith and Javon Edwards and those other guys in the playoffs. But if they keep performing like this on the defensive side, we're not going to see much of them this season. But Kevin, let's keep moving on. We got North Augusta facing Lakeside out of Georgia. North Augusta wins that game 27-17. Airport comes back to beat Lamar 10-2. Great defensive performance there from Airport. Lugoff Elgin, they shut out Darlington and winning this game 7-0. Big bounce back win for them.
Got to go shout out to the Falcons and Coach Johnson. This is I know they lost the ball game there, but they were competitive against a bigger 4A school. I mean, he's building something there. We talked about it, in our new coaches interview with him. They're a young team. They're a couple years away, but I think they've got the right man for the job. I mean, it's been evident they've already won a ball game. They put up a lot of points on Hartsville, played this game tight. The Falcons are heading the right direction.
Most definitely. We got Dreher knocking off Lakewood 35-8. Palmetto comes back to beat TR 20-19. Big time win for Palmetto. Coach Norton, I think that's the first victory as a head coach. Mm-hmm. Really excited for them. TR, my Devil Dogs, just continually let me down. Lexington, they come from behind to beat Stratford 25-24. Seems like that was a thrilling football game.
Last second field goal to win. Lexington trailed all game long until that field goal went in. Coach Curtis has those guys believing. Taden Mines there at quarterback is doing a great job for them. And that's a big win over a Stratford program.
What has happened to the Dutch Fork offense? They fall to Huff 20-17. Kevin, alarm bells were ringing last week. This week, I don't even know what, it's a, thunderstorm. Hurricanes coming. What is going on down there in Irma?
And I thought they had a multi-score lead at one point in this ball game. When I was following on Twitter, I felt like, and just could not hold on to it. It seemed like the quarterback didn't have a bad game. Offing played okay. I thought the running back, what's his name? Trent McGuire, maybe, whatever his name is. I thought he ran for 100+. He had a decent ball game. Just not quite enough. This is a Huff team that we saw struggle to score at all against Burns a couple weeks back. Very surprised they lost this one. Like we say in South Carolina, it's still non-region. It doesn't really matter. But at some point, you'd like to win one of these, Jerel. You really would.
Yeah, this is 0-3, for the first time since Tom Knotts has stepped foot on campus there. We talked about it preseason. re-roll the tape on that one. My foot's all in my mouth. As long as Tom Knotts is there, Dutch Fork can't be stopped. And we have been proven otherwise, and I say we to try to get some support here. But that is not a good look for those guys.
Yeah, we're going to be on Old Takes Exposed if they dip into the high school ranks. We are be front and center, Jerel.
They're going to have my face plastered on there because I was the lead, banging the drum there. But they really got some problems down there. But Chapin knocks off Spring Valley 38-7 in that ball game. Ridgeview bounces back in a big way. They knock off Lower Richland 47-6. We've got Westwood falling to Blythewood 30-20. That was a competitive ball game. Like to see Westwood. They have really competed early in the season. But Blythewood battles back to win that game. We got Northwood knocking off Thomas Hayward 40-12. St. Andrews beats John Paul II 36-7. Branchville knocks off Colleton Prep 38-31. Blackville Hilda follows up. They beat Allendale Fairfax 39-0. Latta holds off McBee 28-14. That's a good win for the Vikings. I think they moved to 3-0 on the season. Andrews over Carvers Bay 42-6. Will Branch knocks off Religion Hardyville 44-18. Wagner Sally over Lake Marion 26-20. Louisville, man, they got that offense rolling now. They beat Chesterfield 58-0. Big time game.
Shutouts as well. They're drill for that defense.
Most definitely, yeah. They're a very good football team. Excited to see how they progress throughout the season. Another one, keynote game here. Cheraw beating Hannah Pamplico 41-14. Thought this game would be much more competitive. Cheraw showed a lot of fight against Marlborough County last week, but that's a good look for the Braves.
Yeah, Hannah Pamplico 2-0 to start the year. Offense lighting up with Poston and Williams there. Held pretty much in check there by the Braves. A team that we've been high on. We talked to Coach Poole. Little season preview. He was high on them. They've got a bunch of young guys, so it may take them some time to gel and to come along, but that was a big bounce back after a tough week 1 loss there for Cheraw.
Marion rolls Central Pageland 34-7. We got Lee Central.
We got to talk about Marion every week. I feel like those boys keep putting up points. Pageland Central, a really good defensive football team. It feels like year in, year out. Quaysheed Scott, another big game. The Storm Foxes continue to put up points. The defense is playing well. Also, this Marion team, I think, is the real deal, and I feel like every week they become a more serious contender in my eyes.
Lee Central knocks off Buford 22-7. St. Joe's over Landrum 34-6. That's a big win for St. Joe's. Blacksburg beats Cherryville out of North Carolina 59-46. Blacksburg's really making some noise early in the season. We've got West Oak over the SC Spartans 50-6. I think that's back-to-back wins for West Oak, man.
I was about to say, I feel like they have had several winless seasons, and I've got 2 wins already 3 weeks into the season, Jerel. I don't know what to make of these guys. Obviously, I don't think they're going to, state title contenders like that, but just to see them putting some W's on the board is impressive, and it makes me happy, man.
For sure. Going to have to do some extended research to see who the SC Spartans are. It says they're out of Rock Hill, but we'll figure it out. But nonetheless, good for those boys over in Westminster. We got Crescent over Fountain Inn 33-13. Christ Church holds on to beat Asheville School 27-26 in a wild one, man. Christ Church, they play good football. Speaking of wild ones, Abbeville for the second week in a row comes back over Southside Christian 22-21. Punches it in. I think it's Carson Norman, the running back
Carson Norman. Yep.
Carson Norman, man. They go for 2. Coach Nichols, the second week in a row, going for the dub, non-region, letting it all hang out. This game was 21-7 at halftime. We're both sitting at the concession stand, figuring out what's going to happen with Big A. They win again. We got North Charleston over Baptist Hill 40-14. Calhoun County knocks off Battery Creek 41-26. Academic Magnet beats Burke 18-12. Philip Simmons rolls Georgetown 48-14.
That's a really impressive win. That's a Georgetown team that took Hanahan to the brink in week 0. Philip Simmons, great defensive performance there. Stevenson, those guys. Coach Bendig has him rolling. Coach Adams always has a tough offense to defend. Philip Simmons holding the 14 points is really impressive there for the Iron Horses.
In a border battle, Scotland from North Carolina knocks off Marlborough County 49-26. Crestwood wins huge over Andrew Jackson 49-7. Man, that Crestwood offense is legitimate.
Yeah, that's impressive, man. They've got a tough one this week as well, but those guys are getting it done. If they can just stop a few guys, which they did last weekend, they'll be a very good football team.
Fox Creek beats McCormick 21-14. We got Berea over Carolina High 34-19. Wren knocks off Seneca 48-30. Seneca hadn't allowed a point all season. They give up 48 to the Golden Hurricanes.
Great win for Coach Frey. His first win as the head man there at Wren. Very, not, I wouldn't say surprising, super shocking. It was a little bit surprising to me, honestly. Seneca, like you said, had not allowed a point, looked very good. Wren, they're young. I feel like it's the theme with a lot of these new head coaches. They have a young squad, so it takes some time to build. But, I mean, Wren, I tell you what, Jerel, that region they're in, Powdersville's pretty good. BHP's very good. I think Wren has a real shot to make a move for that 3 seed in that region this year.
James Island continues to roll. They beat First Baptist 64-0. This score got Hampton County over Emerald 27-24. Hilton Head Island falls to Beaufort 20-17. I think that's the Eagles' first win on the season. Dillon over Wilson 34-13.
Wilson,
Florence.
I mean, we got to talk about Wilson for a second. This team 1-2 now. They beat Ainer by a point week 0. They fall to Marion in week 1, a 2A squad. They fall to Dillon in week 2, a 3A squad. I mean, I don't know what to make of Wilson because they're in one of the toughest 4 regions in the state. I'm really skeptical about the Tigers right now. Like, they got talent we like with Waiters and Scott and those guys there, but this is not a good start to the season for them.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to be fighting for that 4 seed, to get in the playoffs at this point. It just doesn't look good. This game was competitive last year. This is a game where I think Dillon had to come back from like 3 or 4 scores to win last year. And, they just completely destroy Wilson this year and really non-competitive. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of that competition they got coming up, South Florence rolls Orangeburg Wilkinson 61-0. Don't let these guys, get their stride, get things figured out early on. We know they're one of the best coach teams in the state. North Myrtle Beach beats West Brunswick out of North Carolina 35-7. We've got Strom Thurmond over Aiken 48-12. York defeats Union County 38-17. Indian Land beats Palisades in a close one 27-26. BHP beats Lawrence 49-21. Greer all over Blue Ridge 51-0. Eastside picks up, I think, their first dub on the year. They knock off Liberty 28-21. Chesney over Walhalla 20-10. Pickens picks up their first win. They knock off Southside 41-13. Think that's the first win for Coach Reynolds there at Pickens. Fort Dorchester, they traveled over to Grayson in Gwinnett County, playing one of the best programs in the country. They lose 41-0. Wando over Stall 55-0. Cane Bay defeats West Ashley 19-14. That's a big win for Cane Bay. That's really good for them. West Ashley has one of the best defenses in the state. Another statement win, Sumter over Goose Creek. They won this game 50-15. Gamecocks, we saw them last week. They're a very legitimate ball club. Myrtle Beach has bounced back the last couple of weeks. They beat St. James 30-9. West Florence over Socastee 49-27. Ashley Ridge beats Conway 33-25. This was a tight one and a big win for Oceanside. They knock off Carolina Forest 14-13. Rock Hill over Lancaster 36-16. Catawba Ridge falls to Nation Ford 17-13. Copperhead's not having their start to the season as they anticipated.
First win in school history for Nation Ford over Catawba Ridge. I think it's only the 4th all-time meeting, I believe it was, but first win there for the Falcons over their crosstown rival.
The Easley Green Wave knock off the Wade Hampton General 62-33. This was the one we talked about, man, and I love, a lot of my predictions, they end up being false, but this was a trap game, and I called it last week. Spartanburg and Broome. Spartanburg wins this game 14-13. I want to say that Broome went to win the game at the end, and that's how Spartanburg was able to hold off the Centurions. Man, that was a heck of a ball game on Friday night.
Broome is the real deal. I think McGill is a stud. The defense is pretty good. And while Spartanburg gets the win, I do have some concerns about that offense, Jerel. Week 0, I think they put up, was it 14 or 10 against South Point? They put up 10 last week and then get a 7, I think, from the defense in that win over Dutch Fork. 14 this week. You got to get that figured out. Obviously, got a great head coach there, Mark Hodge, offensive guy. I'm sure he will get it figured out. But right now, the Vikings offense could just still use a little bit of a tune-up there. But a big win, that's the name of the game. They got the win over Broome when they had to.
Most definitely. But, yeah, I think that, man, 3A is so stacked. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. But like you said, man, the Vikings got to figure out that offense. Speaking of low offensive outputs, we had Greenwood and Dorman. Greenwood's able to get this win 10-7, man. Another team we got to ring alarm bells for. Dorman, they have not looked good to kick off this season. So, but on the other side, Greenwood has. They've been very impressive early on this year.
Yeah, a great defensive performance. We always know that Dorman's going to have big physical guys up front, be able to run the ball. Greenwood holding them to 7, and that was a late 7 as well. It didn't score until I think sometime midway through the fourth quarter on a long touchdown pass. Greenwood had a couple picks in this ball game. The Eagles, a great job with Deterius Gary running the ball. The quarterback threw a touchdown, the quarterback threw a touchdown for them in that ball game. They're playing some good football for Coach Liner. Obviously, last week, Sandy Creek, you lose that one. You don't hang your head over that, but big win over Dorman this week.
Season opener over at Nixon Field in Duncan. The Burns Rebels roll Greenville 37-14. I know we talked to Rob after that game on the Spaces. Looks like Mazio Bennett, he ended up leaving that game in the first quarter after a big hit. Hopefully he recovers. He's doing fine. Our thoughts and prayers go to him. But man, that's quite the statement. Burns laid an egg last week against Chapman. They come back this week and make a statement. Again, with Burns, it's a roller coaster. It seems like you don't know, kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Looks like it's going to be the same thing this season. But that's a big-time win in their home opener.
They got the offense going. I mean, that's been the key. Had not done much of anything the first 2 weeks, but then Stevens had a good game. Segura had a good game. We know what Weaver and Bomar can do with the athletic spots there for them. Burns has got as much talent as anybody in the state. Can they hold it together and put it together? Big win there for the Rebels. Not really a danger zone yet for Greenville, but a couple losses early in the year. Obviously, we know Coach Porter likes to, schedule tough opponents, and this is going to happen sometimes for them. But they need to get Bennett back healthy. Prayers to him, of course. Hope he's good to go, and I think they'll be fine as we roll along. But big win for Burns.
Bounce back performance for the Riverside Warriors. They knock off Woodmont 37-26. Woodmont looked good early in the first 2 games of the season. That's a big win for the Warriors there. Kevin, probably the most confusing game and, the most confusing team for me since I've started covering high school football, and that's the T.L. Hanna Yellow Jackets. They fall to Westside 42-30. This is a Westside team that opened their season last week against BHP. Could not get the offense going, could not stop Marcus Henderson in that, rushing attack from the Bears. And then this week, they play Hanna, who probably has the 2 most impressive wins to kick off the season, and they win it. This is a game, I think we heard some stuff like, they didn't punt in this game like 1 or 2 times. Quite crazy. The only times, there was some change of possession, some turnover stuff. But I don't know what to make of this scoreline, and I don't know what to make of either of these teams. I know we're only 3 weeks in, but this one left me scratching my head.
Back-to-back seasons, Westside is beating TL Hanna fairly handily. We know they can score points. Defense is always going to be, the issue with those guys. At least it has been lately. Can they get it figured out? I don't know. They didn't do a whole lot to show me one way or the other this week about that. But then TL Hanna, like you said, they had a pretty good defensive performance. I felt like against a pretty good Greenville team 2 weeks ago, but they could not really back it up against Westside. And another team is just they're an enigma for real, Jerel. We know that offense, they're going to score, they're going to give teams trouble, but this is a shocker to me for sure.
Quite the head scratcher for sure on both sides. Powdersville knocks off Malden 41-32. The Patriots picking up their first win of the season. Jail man continues to roll. They knock off Woodruff 40-0. Again, I don't have to say it, but the Patriots, man, they're legitimate. Hillcrest, they beat Clover 24-7. Kevin, this is a scoreline I did not expect. Clover, they got boat raced by Northwestern last week. I expected the Rams to do the same thing. You gotta like that for Coach Woolbright to see the improvement from week 1 to week 2. But do we need some alarm bells for the Rams, or is this kind of just a situation of maybe not taking the opponent as seriously as they should have, or could be a matchup issue?
I think maybe might be a matchup thing. Good point there. Last year this was a very close game as well over in Chandler Stadium. This year going up to Clover, not an easy place to play. First real road test, I would say, for Hillcrest. The Sutton kids playing well. Obviously, Avery McFadden's playing well for them, but didn't have their best offensive ball game. We didn't feel like the other night. I think they're going to be fine, but going on the road to beat Clover is always a solid win.
And the last one I have, I think this game was played on Thursday due to the weather, the remnants from the tropical storm. Absolute thriller, though, man. We had Richland Northeast knocking off Keenan 44-43. Just a big-time game for the Cavaliers there. And their quarterback, the quarterback had 6 rushing touchdowns or something crazy in that football game. But that's the scoreboard that I have for this week.
Yeah, Will Wilson, the NC State commit, like you said, ran it for touchdowns a lot on Thursday, surprising there, but a great ball game between those guys and Keenan. But, Jerel, let's take a look now at our stock up, stock down from week 2. I'll go first. A couple schools I've got on the stock up. May River, a big win over Walkamaw. Coach Bonneville's first win as a head coach. Great job there for the Sharks. And then Jefferson Davis, a SCSA school. I don't know if you guys follow SCSA very much at all, but they knocked off Holly Hill, who has been running that classification for a while now. Big win for Jefferson Davis there. And then Saluda, a team that we talked about all the seniors they lost. I think it was 30-something seniors. They go and they shut out a 2-0 96 team, 25-0. Coach Young has those guys playing well early in the year. They're continuing to get better and better. Big win for the Tigers.
Well, it seems like I got Irmo, man. They have been so impressive to start this season. Really excited. I'm looking ahead. I can look ahead to their matchup 2 weeks from now against Hartsville. I think that's going to be a whale of a ball game. Myrtle Beach, man, the last couple of weeks they've really bounced back after early season struggle. Beaufort and Powdersville the same way, picking up their first wins of the season in very competitive football games. Really excited to see. We know those teams matched up last year for the state championship. It was only a matter of time before they got in the win column.
I've got Riverside on there, a nice bounce-back win after losing a week ago to JL, man. And then Wren, first win of the season over a team, like you mentioned, at Seneca, that had not given up a point yet this season. Gaffney also stock up for them, proved it to us that they are the real deal. Bamberg-Earhart, a big bounce-back over a good 2A team. And then Chester, shutting out a very good top 5 2A Fairfield Central. The Cyclones continue to impress, Jerel.
You mentioned this team is an enigma. West Side, we got to put a stock up on them. We're really high. Didn't really get many game notes. Maybe they got healthy, and we know Jamar Boston was out that first game. Maybe he was able to play. That could have been the difference in the football game. But the Rams picking up their first dub. Hartsville, man, we keep talking about them. We've kind of left them off because we've already had their stock through the roof. But we gotta put them on a graphic just because they've played so well. Nation Fourth is probably our upset of the week. Their game this week, they have looked very impressive here. And Cross, man, had a confusing, week 0 loss. Last few weeks, they've come back and made up for it. Big win over Timberland this week. Like to see what Cross is doing. They got to make me look good. I think I picked them to be in the state championship game. I need them to perform.
The last two I've got, Oceanside Collegiate, a win over a 5A Carolina Forest team that gave Somerville all they could handle 2 weeks ago. Big win there for the Land Sharks. And then Midland Valley, the team we saw in person, Jerel. I don't know about you, but for me personally, I knew they were 2-0. It looked okay. Knew they had Dunbar, could run the ball a little bit, but I wasn't really sold on the Mustangs, I would say. But then seeing them in person, like I said, they looked the part coming off the bus, man. They got the athletes. They got the size. They were very impressive on Friday night over there in Petticoat Junction. But let's flip it over to the stock down side. A couple that I've got, Jerel. Seneca, we just mentioned, had knocked up a point until this week. Give up 40-something to Wren and lose that ball game. And then Andrew Jackson. I know you're playing a 3A team. I know it's Crestwood, who's got a great offense, but back-to-back losses, this time losing 42-7, I think it was. A little bit larger margin than I would have liked it to have been for the Volunteers.
Yeah, I think it actually was 49-7, man. It was, I don't even know.
Even more.
It was not good. A couple more, man. Hannah, again, I don't know what to make about that team. They're stocked down, though, this week. And Dorman, man, they just have not been impressive to start the season. We're 3 weeks in. The Cavaliers just don't look like the Cavaliers, man. And if they don't figure it out, like they can't beat teams like Greenwood, they're dang sure not beating the teams in their region.
Last two, I've got Camden. Flip side of that Hartsville game. This is a Camden team that had looked very impressive 2 weeks into the season. Get the doors blown off by Hartsville in a rivalry game at that. That was very surprising, that margin of score there. And then Silver Bluff, still they're a very good football team, I feel like, but you throw up a few red flags after watching that ball game. You get a few, worries there for the Bulldogs, but I still think they will be there at the end, right, Jerel?
Yeah, and like you said, with Silver Bluff, and the same thing on the opposite with Midland Valley with our stock up section. Silver Bluff, it was just the way they lost that game. They were physically dominated in that game, and honestly, it should have been worse than the 21-7 score line, if we're being honest. So, they'll be there at the end. These are all good teams on here. Just didn't have the performances this week and the last couple weeks, I would say, to justify how good they are. But we'll see how it goes going forward.
Let's look now at our Players of the Week, brought to you by the Georgia Agency. Another great week of nominees, Jerel. A lot of kids to pick from. Had a hard time again. We appreciate you guys shooting those to us on Twitter or email or Facebook or Instagram, whatever it is. Continue to do so. But our 3 Players of the Week. The first one, we've got Drew Spires at Richard Wynn. You guys have heard his name a lot as a nominee. This week, he is our Player of the Week. 11 receptions, 242 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 rushes for 19 yards, a punt return for 93 yards and a touchdown, 1 pass breakup, 8.5 tackles, and 354 all-purpose yards. Great game there from Drew Spires. Our second Player of the Week, Zion Dobson at Hampton County. The Hurricanes down there. 26 rushes, 290 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Also threw and completed a pass for 39 yards. Great game from Zion. And then Joshua Sims at Blacksburg, a program that had a really tough year last year. They're off to a good start now. He went 15 for 24, 345 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Great performance from Joshua Sims in Blacksburg this Friday night. So once again, our 3 Players of the Week, Drew Spires at Richard Wynn, Zion Dobson at Hampton County, and then Joshua Sims at Blacksburg. Jerel, 3 monster performances, but let's give a shout out to some of these other kids too who had big showings in week 2.
Yeah, my boy Drew Spires putting up those Travis Hunter numbers, man. I mean, he's just
I love it.
Getting it done on both sides. But again, let's shout out these kids, man. Yannick Smith at Somerville, 4 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 2 receiving. Big time win for them over Berkeley. Had Quan Edmond from Strom Thurmond. He goes 15 for 21 for 229 and 4 touchdowns. He's throwing it to the Tennessee target, Braylon Staley. He had 6 catches for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. I also think that he had a punt return for touchdown. I saw a video of him shaking a kid out of his shoes in that football game. Kenman Brunson from Saluda, 20 totes, 187 yards and 3 touchdowns. Aiden Pope from Jail Man, 9 tackles, a pick 6, and a shutout for that defense over Woodruff. Joshua Sims, we already talked about Joshua. Cortland Brunson for Trinity Collegiate at 310 all-purpose yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 tackles, 1 TFL, and a sack. Landon Newman from Trinity Collegiate as well. A blocked field goal, a blocked punt, 73-yard pick 6, 7 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 PBU. I think we need Pete Limbo and my boy Shane Beamer to call up Landon so he can play for that Gamecocks, special teams unit. Cameron Cobb from Blacksburg, 8 catches for 173, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. We had Jay Stoker from Easley, 14 of 19 for 347 and 6 touchdowns. Logan Sullivan, also from Easley, 21 rushes, 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Carter McCollum from Pickens, 28 rushes, 238 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Ian Grissom from Louisville, the great quarterback there, goes 10 of 17 for 195 yards and 4 touchdowns. Christian Zachary from Calhoun County, big-time stud receiver there, has 6 catches, 180 yards, and a touchdown. Jackson Rett from Christchurch, 5 catches, 157 for 3 touchdowns, 281 all-purpose yards. Carmelo McDaniel, one of the best running backs in the state out of Hartsville, has 14 carries for 166 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jeremy Richardson out of Crestwood, 5 catches, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amazing Littlejohn from Gaffney, 6 catches, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also had Terrence Smith from South Aiken, 19 of 29, 215, 2 touchdowns, 15 carries for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Malik Scurry, also from South Aiken, 6 catches for 151 yards and 1 touchdown. If South Aiken could get somebody to stop on defense, that would be a heck of a combo. Kevin, those are our nominees for this week, man. Just so many talented performances from these players this week.
Yeah, it's always hard to pick these, but we love that you guys are making it hard for us, man. Like I said, keep shooting us those stats every week on Twitter, Facebook, email, the website, DM us on Instagram, whatever you need to do. Keep shooting us that stuff. Keep tagging us in those. Love to see it. We've only got a set number of stat lists to get sent to us each week. Outside of that, we're having to try to scour social media and whatnot to get these guys. So continue to send us these big performances as you see them. But once again, hats off to Drew Spires, Zion Dobson, and Joshua Sims. Our Week 2 Players of the Week brought to you by the George Agents.
Take your financial game to the next level with Founders Federal Credit Union. Reach your full potential. Relax. Join Founders today. Visit an office near you or relaxjoinfounders.com to apply. Federally insured by NCUA, member qualification required.
The George Agency has been serving the insurance needs of South Carolina for over 40 years. They're a full-line insurance agency concentrated in employee benefits and health insurance with an office in Mullins and Murrells Inlet, but they can help you all across the state. They have clients in Greer, Rock Hill, Columbia, and more. So wherever you are, they can help. Give Bradley, Wayne, Richard, and the crew a call or check them out online at thegeorgeagency.net. That's thegeorgeagency.net.
Come for the deals and stay for the quality with Folly Row. From polos to Q-zips to hats and more, their moisture wicking, quick drying, and anti-wrinkle apparel is the perfect blend of comfort and fashion for game day. FollyRow.com and at Folly Row on social media. Folly Row. Very good polo.
Moving right along into our Folly Row question, Jerel. And this is one that could go either way. You could think of it in a good way or a bad way. And that is, what is your most surprising team 3 weeks into the South Carolina high school football season?
Man, I got to go the Greenville High Red Raiders, keeping it up here in the upstate, man. They start off the season, they beat Dorman. It's a huge win. Like you said earlier, man, Coach Porter, schedule's tough, non-region, because being quite honest, they don't play the most difficult region schedule. And then the next 2 weeks, they fall to Hannah, they fall to Burns, but really with Burns, man, they get blown out by Burns. Burns hasn't scored more than 20 points this year, 24 points, and 7 of that on defense in that first game against Huff. And Burns talking about a quarterback change all year, and they put up 37. We know stud receiver Mazio Bennett gets knocked out early in that game, but you expect Greenville to be state championship quality, and they were non-competitive in this football game, much like they were last week. And as Dorman's season has progressed, they haven't been that good. It's not the same Dorman, so that a little bit of shine off that win has kind of come off. Really surprised by Greenville. I thought they were right there this season with Northwestern, especially the way that they ended last season, the amount of talent they have. They've got some things to figure out. We're talking about common opponents here. I don't try to get into transitive properties too much. Westside just knocked off Hannah, and that's a team that they're going to face in that region that I said is not that good, but you have a common opponent there. Westside gets the dub this week. 2 weeks ago, Greenville falls to them, so I got to go with the Red Raiders. Kevin, Folly Row question for you. Who's the most surprising team, good or bad?
A lot of ways to go with this one. I thought about going with Midland Valley, a team that we just saw. That's a great start for them, but I don't know how you don't look at Dutch Fork going 0-3 and pick those guys. I mean, we know they play a tough schedule, of course, Colquitt County and Spartanburg and Huff, but you think they're going to win one of those, right, Jerel?
Yeah.
It's very, very worrisome. Like we said, Tom Notch is still there. I'm sure they're going to figure it out, but so far, that's a big surprise to me. Did not see them going 0-3 to start the season.
Yeah, man, we've talked about it. I think we talked about it last week, especially in our Folly Row question, man. That is so surprising to see for those guys. But most importantly, the defense seems to be fine. They gave up 20 this week. Huff's not an offensive juggernaut by any means, it doesn't appear. But they scored 17 again this week, man. They haven't scored over 20 points this year, I don't think. And that's not something you expect, from Dutch Fork.
No doubt about it, Jerel. This has been, another great show. If you guys are just hearing us for the first time, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, etc. at Movin Chains. That's MOVINCHAINS. Our website, movinchains.com, actually, MOVINCHANS.com. We do a recap show every Sunday that comes out. We go through all the ball games from across the state. Check that out. We do a live preview show on Tuesdays on Facebook and YouTube. Check that out and comment. Talk about your favorite team. Ask us questions. It's a lot of fun. Very interactive. Just hop on to that about 7 o'clock on Tuesdays. We do our Friday night spaces over on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a live scoreboard show. We run through scores from across the state. You guys can hop in and tell us about the game that you were at. We've got different coaches lined up and fans lined up and broadcasters lined up to talk about the game that they were at. So it's a lot of fun to hop in there. Very interactive as well. Our players of the week, games of the week, teams of the week, pick them, all that stuff's going on each and every week. So definitely check that out. It's been a great season so far, Jerel. Looking forward to week 3. The schedule maybe isn't the best one we've seen for a week so far, but I feel like every time we say that, chaos ensues and it becomes just a great week of football.
That's exactly what happens every time we think like, man, we don't really know where to go this week. We end up ending up at a great game. And that's just, that's South Carolina high school football, man. There's great competition across the state each and every week. Just really excited about this week again. It sounds like a broken record, I'm sure, but excited to get out, on the field or the turf, whatever we end up at this week, and just really, really looking forward to it. Last week was fun, but I know this is going to be another wild one. So we'll just buckle up and get ready for it. And also, college football season too. Got a little fall, weather in the air. We had a little chill down there at Silver Bluff this week at Petticoat Junction. We're starting to get into that fall football weather. Just really excited, Kev.
I do want to give one more shout out to our sponsors, whether that's Founders Federal Credit Union or Carolina Orthopedic and Neurosurgical Associates or the Georgia Agency or Folly Row or Hannah Engineering, whoever it is. They make this possible. So if you guys need any of their services, whether it's insurance or engineering or clothing, or you need a new credit union or a bank or a loan, check these guys out, man. They do a great job and support the people that support us. That we can't do this show without them. So definitely check out our sponsors and support those guys. And if you guys have a business, want to be a part of the show, we're welcome to have you on board. Also, send us a DM, send us an email. Love to chat with you about that. But for Jerel Hendricks, I'm Kevin Thomas. This has been our Movin the Chains Week 2 Folly Row recap show. We will catch you guys soon.